Hello and welcome to the Illuminate podcast. I am your host, Brian M. Treskowski with Illuminate. Today with us, our guest is Leslie Blackburn. She is an accomplished and gifted sacred sexuality healer and transformational guide, as well as an international speaker, seminar leader, radio show host, artist, yogini, and more. Over a decade ago, she cracked open to see a new life in a whole new way and has begun a journey of spiritual awakening, a process of embodiment and learning to let go. In 2008, fueled by her passion, she stepped away from a successful 15-year corporate engineering career to follow her bliss. Leslie's passion is to help people find and connect with their own deep power and wisdom. She feels authentically called to share this path with the world and does so with passion, vulnerability, joy, wisdom, and giggles. Those are my favorite part, the giggles. Founder of OneSpace LLC and the Mystery School of the Temple Arts, Leslie illuminates the path of self-realization through sacred sexuality, yoga, meditation, art, sacred geometry, and so much more. Thank you for being with us today, Leslie. It's so a pleasure to see your smiling face.
Yay, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely. So tell the listeners a little bit more about what you do, because I know you are a really vast creature and I love all of it. So let's just maybe a little more into that.
Sure. To me, the path of sacred sexuality really is about trusting our bodies and claiming our power and really having that be in the process of remembering who we are. So as we remember who we are and build resilience in our body to open to the bigness of who we are as light beings, as energetic beings that get to be here in a body, right? The journey to me of sacred sexuality is about really coming home, really getting in here and being curious about what's it like to be in this physical body in this lifetime as a path of making and getting clear on our choices and what we're supposed to do on the planet. And so that's very interwoven with self-purpose and power and claiming sexual sovereignty, claiming choice.
I love that. That's fantastic. And you do such a fantastic job of holding space for people to do that. So you definitely have, I'll just say as a personal thing, you were there with me in the beginning of my awakening, and you brought tears out of crevices in my body that I didn't even know were possible. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know who this woman is, but I love her already. So it's just a joy. So with that, you ready to dive into the questions?
Yeah, and I'm really honored. Thank you for sharing that. I think it is really important to acknowledge when these places open up in us. So yeah, thank you.
And it can be scary at first, right? And just being able to, as a practitioner, as a coach, and just be able to hold space for that, it's an honor on my end. I feel like to be that.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, yay. So with that, kind of maybe tying into that, what are 3 things from your heart that you want to share with the world that you feel like you don't hear being discussed?
Okay. Well, when I sat with this, I was like, well, here we are here now. And what is the big thing that we are all in? And that is a global pandemic. And how often has that happened in our lifetime? Not at all. I think the thing that I'm seeing that people are curious about and often not talking about is sexuality and touch as we're in a quarantine situation, as we're in what I'll call stay at home. Or one of my colleagues and mentors and friends really reframed the whole idea of social distancing as one of spacious solidarity. Really we're supporting each other and our community and our care for each other right now by staying at home, by having space. And so it's from deep care. And there's this question of yeah, but part of what I've been really struggling with is a lack of touch, or especially folks who are really isolated in their quarantine, group or their care pod. They may be by themselves versus with partners. There's an even stronger question of, how do I meet my sexual needs? How do I meet my general human needs for human contact and touch? And I think it's really important to acknowledge the desire for, and I've heard, as people have brought this to my awareness, a lot of shame in it too.
Oh, wow.
How can I sit here wondering about quote, when am I going to have sex again? Or like, what's it like to feel touch when I know people are really sick or are dying? And so to have a lot of, like, I'll just call it just a really wide, compassionate love and care for all of us as a community on this planet right now, and acknowledging those who are in different places with this journey, but that the need for human contact and touch is really important. We need it to survive. So I have ways and invitations in my work on how we can create that, to sort of, I tend to bring this place of like, I'm a science geek as well as like an esoteric spiritual geek. So I'll bring like all of them together, right? So like the science of it is our parasympathetic nervous system needs this support and care to like come down off of high alert and to feel safe and to feel like, and to open to who we are and to open to sexual energy. So we can create that certainly through human contact, but we can also kind of in the meantime, how can we meet some of those pieces of what human contact offers us ourselves, or with the land, or with trees, like feeling pressure and body contact and support, supported nurturing, like these ways that support our nervous system and our bodies to be like, right? We can get that from being in a mammal pile with human creatures, but we can also get that from our, from Zephyr, from our
our four-legged furries,
yeah, and from literally laying with our belly down on the earth, on the soil with the mother. And so that's one thing that I see as really coming up right now in questions, and certainly something I support in my work, ways to meet that and get curious about that.
Absolutely. I just want to reflect on that. Like, yes, I do have a four-legged child, and she's wonderful, and she's been giving me more snuggles than ever, which is like fantastic. I love it, and I'm grateful for that. But like you said, like the other day I was like, I engaged by hugging a tree. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to stay here all day. It's just fantastic, because it's the touch. It's the touch, right? And yeah, I actually did a course in self-massage a few weeks ago, and that was great. And hug yourself there. That is something in that. But yeah, at some point, it sounds like a course you're offering, but yeah, how we can get our needs met, with that.
Yeah, it's connected through my sacred body circles that I have monthly that started at the beginning of the year. That's one place that I offer those. It was interesting how those arose kind of at a time when I'm like, this was certainly before I knew we would be in a complete shutdown with the pandemic. But I really felt astrologically what was going on and some other things in January. It was like, it became clear, Spirit's like, you have to create a monthly offering that you're plugging into your body, plugging into the land, and remembering and opening to like the power of who we are. And so that this monthly offering came about, and I was like, oh, and it needs to be online. Like for some reason it was the first online offering that I had ever done. I'm like, it needs to be online so folks can join in. And I plan, as the weather supports it, I can sort of broadcast from out here. I haven't yet because the days didn't align in the first couple months of the year, but that we can really come into and listen to our bodies as this vessel of wisdom, right? And so, yeah, through that is one way. And I'm still working with folks remotely, even though the in-person sessions are on pause right now.
Nice.
So that's another way.
Nice. And what was the second thing you were going to mention?
The second thing was, that doesn't get talked about. And I've posted a couple of just peeks into this, but on how white supremacy and how it relates right now with COVID. I had a bit of a personal awakening. Gosh, it's been about like a year and a half ago. And then like a real aha moment just over a year ago where, here I was in my 40s as a woman, a white woman, and woman, and actually a person who identifies in the gender spectrum in a really wide way, I'll say, in addition to womanhood. And just going, wait a minute, like, am I really waking up to how much racial, like embodied racial dominance there still is, and how much white supremacy and racism still exists, like in a day-to-day operating environment. And I really had like a lot of shame at first for finally seeing it. And then as I started to work with it a little bit more through the year, then this happened, and it, like, the lens of recognizing how much being in a body that is perceived as white, no matter what our history is, carries privilege, and that the way that that's impacting, I'll say right now in the COVID pandemic, there are folks in Black and brown bodies that are being totally disproportionately impacted by this virus. And it has nothing to do with an actual, like, oh, their bodies are more susceptible to the virus. It's not that it at all. But if we look at the statistics and the things on what's happening, it's like this white supremacist, racist culture of, needing to be in sort of the dominant mainstream view, to be in places of privilege that sort of protect us by having the privilege to be able to stay home and work from home, or, not be in roles like, so all of these things stack up to meaning folks are being really disproportionately impacted. And I don't see that. I see that being talked a little bit in the circles, some of the circles I'm in, but I think there's a lot we need to do, as certainly I'll speak from my experience of just being in what is perceived as a white body, to start to, like, actively bring conversation around this and actively make change to our cultural structures, so that this is no longer the truth, no longer the thing that we walk in, where folks are disproportionately impacted in this way, those in marginalized communities. So it happens to be Black, Indigenous, people of color, and transgendered folks that are really getting impacted. And that's something I want to see change. I'm doing my own personal work with it, sure. I don't have all the answers, but, like, I want to be in more conversations, especially with more conversations with white folks about it, because I think there's some folks that don't even see that white supremacy is still a thing. That if we're not in the KKK or not in some overt white supremacist violence, that it's not harm, but it is harm. It to see that even in our day to day, there is harm happening through not acknowledging the discrepancy. So
Absolutely. I mean, and me as identifying as a white male, I mean, by and large, I'm accepting and loving of all humans and individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, or gender, but like you said, by just first glance, it's like, oh, what does he have to say? He's just a white male. So it's like, well, I've been glommed into that whole sort of archetype in that, right? So, like, having these conversations is part about me trying to generate conversations and talk about the things that aren't being talked about. Because I believe from my heart that we need to, and B, this is my platform. I'm trying to get that out there. So
yeah. And I'll say, and as that, like, let me offer something. So a resource that helped me see a lot more than I even realized that I wasn't seeing. Lots of my own blind spots. Is Layla Saeed's work, Saad, Layla, Layla, Layla Saeed. And she has a book called Me and White Supremacy Workbook. And it came out of a 28-day Instagram challenge she had like maybe a year ago or more. And then it became a workbook that she offered as a PDF, as a download for free, but then now she has a book. And so I encourage, like, get the book and buy it to support her work, right? But I full disclosure, I haven't read her full book because I had the workbook. So I've done the workbook, and I say that as a thing to, like, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable work. It's uncomfortable to go in and peek around inside of who we are and how we're complicit in some of this white supremacist culture that we don't, like you said, we want to care for other humans, and we know that it's not right to have a difference, and those differences exist. So the ways we can get curious about and start to unpack it and do our own personal work, I think helps. So I encourage all white folks to, like, get a hold of Me and White Supremacy Workbook and Resmaa Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands. He talks about how literally in our bodies, we hold the embodied racialized trauma of our lineages that have come through these various things that have happened over the course of the last millennia that have caused the rift. And that rift is still trauma in our bodies And the way through it is to start to unpack that. And we each carry it differently. The way a Black person of a lineage that came through across the ocean in a slave trade ship carries something different than the way my body carries, that I have ancestors from Germany and England and in the Netherlands. And so like, you know, no matter what they actually did, they were there during those times. And yeah, it's important, I believe, in our journey of self-awareness to be curious about that. So thanks for letting me speak about it.
Absolutely. I mean, these are potent things. And as a body worker of almost a decade, like I know that like ancestral trauma is in the body, and it's not something you'll see on the New York Times by any means, but it's something as a practitioner I'm aware of, and I have worked with people on that. It's just like, you know, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it's familiar, sometimes it's generational, ancestral, whatever. But regardless, it's very important. So thank you for bringing that up to acknowledge that and to assess it and say, what can I do with the experience and knowledge and wisdom I have to help heal that?
Yeah.
So and you know, on my new website, something I say is, you know, I want to honor you for choosing the path to walk in the light. It's not an easy path, and it's challenging, but it's worth it, right? Mm-hmm. It's worth it to do that work, to have the understanding, to let go of all just the old and step into that freedom, mm-hmm. where you can actually breathe and sit in silence without having all that. So I'm sure it just goes forever and ever and ever. So
totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Leslie. So are you open to the next question? A little bit of a fun.
Yes.
Okay. Yay. So the next one is, let's say starting tomorrow, you can have people come over, friends, community members. What 3 fun things would you want to do with them, knowing what you know now that was unique, that is unique to the situation?
What I love is that it's actually the answer that like, that I was already on the trajectory of. Like, it's okay. So I'm super grateful that Spirit supported the awareness that we needed to move last year when it did. And long story short, a series of synchronicities that were freaking unbelievable. We moved from my longtime Dearborn home of over 20 years to Ann Arbor area. And what we had held was, we want a place to disappear in nature and still be close to downtown, right? Like still be drivable from the highway for people to get here, but also to get to good food and the farms around. And so it happened, and we're here. And so like,
that's such an amazing story. Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that like, that it happened, so that we're quarantined here. Like we wake up every day going, we live here. And like, I say that with like deep, humble reverence and gratitude for the community and the way that it shaped the way it happened, and all the people that made that possible. And what I want to do now, and what we were planning as this, but it's now like just been on pause for a little bit. And actually, I think I know why, for my personal reasons of like, I needed to sink in with the land and get to know the land a little bit before it like kind of bond here, before it was ready to open. But anyway, in answer to your question, what we want to do with One Space, this space, is really, you know, my prayer, my wish for all people is to feel really good about feeling good. And that through that, like, we're not ignoring when we don't, but we're really listening as a path, you know, as a path of illumination and a path of clearing the way and holding space for who we are. And that as we do that, we're co-creating a culture of love and respect for our bodies.
Absolutely.
Right? And each other and nature and the planet and ourselves, are the being that, you know, the light being we are. So in that love and respect place, what we're holding here is a place of like conscious connection and conscious sexuality and conscious awareness of food and the choices we make to bring in our body, growing food here, having like, we don't yet, but to have like composting toilets and have a way where we're bringing like, we consciously eliminate what we're eating. We're having a conversation with the land is having a conversation back through the food. We're in a cycle, right? Eventually.
Right. Absolutely.
And so what I want to do when we open back up is to have the people here and have mammal piles, you know, ways where we can snuggle and be here, and have outdoor contact improvisation and like let's co-create in some gardening and have folks come get your hands dirty and like share in the experience of creating this together and then sharing later in the harvest. And conscious touch and intimacy and connection, creating what I call like these conscious laboratories of experimentation of being humans together. And
Nice.
so there's a lot in that: art and creation and conscious sexuality and food. And yeah, so all of these things, those are the types of things I want to bring here.
Nice. Well, it sounds like there's an endless opportunity to do that for sure. Nice. And then lastly, what's one message from your heart that you want to share with the world? And if you had the world stage to just get up there, which you kind of do, but in this platform.
Okay. I really appreciate this question. And I plug in again with a lot of compassion and care, because what I want to offer is we're in a time right now where every human on the planet is paying attention. And I think that it's a first, frankly, in our lifetimes. And despite the horrors of it, the sicknesses, the deaths, the people that are working in these powerful places of like being on the front lines in healthcare or other essential services where they're literally supporting our community in powerful ways and sometimes putting their own health at risk, like that's important. And this is probably the gentlest way we could all be sort of like, bing, like you're going to wake up and see things, right? This could have happened through World War III.
Yeah.
This could have happened a lot of other ways that would have been a lot more intense. And so my offer is like, let's all take this opportunity as a wake-up call, as a like, hey, we're all paying attention right now. How can we really like build and recreate how we care for each other and how we relate with the earth and how we relate with our bodies and other beings, and really make real palpable shifts in how we do that? It's happening. I'm already seeing it happen. So like that, I believe, is the message. Like we have an opportunity here to change our fundamental operating structures, and let's take that opportunity so that we can rebuild this culture in the way that really feels good to support all beings.
Absolutely. I mean, you said it really well. You said it succinctly. I mean, like we have the opportunity to learn, to grow, to do our work, and it's been a very gentle offering. It could have been far worse. So absolutely. So just to keep us on track with time, we're going a little over today, but that's fine because it's been a great conversation. Let's just wrap and say, well, one, thank you for being here. So what's two last things? How do people get a hold of you? And any sort of just closing statements that you want to leave before we wrap?
Okay, well, that's simple. I'm Leslie Blackburn. My website is leslieblackburn.com. Come check me out there. Check out the free gift, a grounding, centering meditation under the resources page. And reach out. I'm offering remote sessions and also in-person sessions once we reconvene. My plan for that is June at the soonest.
Okay, beautiful. Any other closing statements you want to make before we wrap this lovely conversation?
Just deep gratitude. Thank you for this opportunity and for sharing together, Brian. It was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us, Leslie. It was, I always love you listening to you chat, and you have so much to share with us. So thank you all. And thank you all for listening and watching this video. Please share this message. If it resonates with you, share it in any way, shape, or form. Keep the conversation going. Even have these conversations with yourself, with your friends, family, and loved ones. So thank you all. Get out there, make a beautiful and blessed day. And thank you all for being here. Have a great day.